How many languages are you conversational in? What are your thoughts on marriage, like the concept of it slash societal pressure? What inspired you to start making and selling patterns? You're either secretly or openly a furry. What's up, gang? I recently asked you guys to send in a bunch of questions and assumptions that you had for me, and I am going to be responding to those in today's video. I want to start off with the crochet related ones. So the first one is, how do you come up with ideas for patterns to make slash write? I think I could do it, but I have so few original ideas and I'm afraid of accidentally copying someone. Don't worry about copying someone. The thing about crochet is that nearly all of the things that can be discovered have been discovered. All the stitches, all the techniques, all the constructions. So many times I've made patterns and then I've uploaded it and then my Etsy algorithm will show me like 3 other patterns that are nearly identical to mine. If you are successful, you're bound to get copying accusations. They're really rampant in the crochet community, unfortunately. Every idea is derivative of a pre-existing thing that your brain is already aware of. And actually, when I first started making patterns, it was because I was learning crochet and I was following other people's patterns and I was noticing things that I just didn't really like and I felt like could be done better. So my first few patterns were just like, well, fuck this shit, I'll do it myself. Not to say that my patterns are superior to other people's patterns, but I was simply building upon pre-existing things in ways that I personally liked. And don't worry about like gaps in the market and like what's niche right now, what's in demand right now. Just focus on what you like and what you would genuinely enjoy making if you saw that pattern on Etsy made by somebody else. Inline or tapered crochet hooks. Also, what's your least favorite yarn? I prefer tapered because it makes yarning over easier. My least favorite yarn is probably wool. I like merino and mohair, but any other sort of wool I'm just not a big fan of. Maybe it's cope because they usually are out of my price range, but I also don't think it's compatible with the way I craft because firstly, I do mostly crochet and I think wool is more compatible for knitting. And because I'm a pattern designer, I do a lot of frogging and restarting, frogging and restarting. Wool is not good for trial and error because it holds memory, so over time it just gets so like curly and messed up you can't really work with it anymore. I would only use wool for knitted wearables, which I don't make very often, and at the moment all my knitted wearables are cotton, firstly because it's summer and secondly because my friend Victoria gave me a huge bag of cotton, so that's what I'm working with at the moment. Hello, what do you think about purchasing crochet yarn in local store boxes? I bought ice yarn for like cheap inside the discount boxes. Slay. Did you study at a school in Athens before, if I may ask, or not? Local store boxes. I'm not sure what that means. As in like the big box stores? I think shopping at local store boxes is not ideal because from my experience, they usually carry the synthetic stuff. I think ethically sourcing yarn without breaking your bank is a hard task, and I don't think I'm any better for getting my yarn online. So I think the affordability is nice, the lack of variety not so much. Generally, as long as you're conscious with your yarn consumption and you have a clear idea of what you want to make before you go out and buy yarn, I think you're grand. I did not study in Athens. I've never been to Greece. I would love to go to Greece, so if you have recommendations, please drop them in the comments. I did my higher education here in the Netherlands. Why are my metal crochet hooks getting so hard to use after using them for a while? I'm sorry, I'm not really sure what you mean. Metal hooks are typically made out of steel or aluminium. The steel hooks are usually the really small ones used for micro crochet or making really fine lace, and then aluminium is, I think, just the most common form of metal hook on the market. It could be that you're using the really thin hooks with the thin metal handles, and I really hate these hooks because they're cheap and they're not good for your hands. So if you're talking about hand pain, it's probably because the handle is thin and cold, and in that case I would recommend getting a grip, or I always recommend the clover hooks. These are aluminium and they have the ergonomic handle. Or you mean your hook is like bending out of shape over time? Could be that you're using too much tension, or maybe you don't have enough friction because the metal is really slippery, which in that case I would try transitioning to a wooden hook. I'm not sure, but I hope one of those suggestions is helpful. I have 2 questions. 1, how do you manage burnout as a creator whose channel is heavily reliant on creativity? 2, what inspired you to start making and selling patterns? I also assume you're very cool and whimsy. Thank you. So the first one is a really important question, and I might make a longer video about it. Essentially, I work below my full possible capacity. I have the time and the skill and the resources to make maybe 2 videos a week, but I'm not doing that because I will burn out. I don't force my ideas, I let them come to me naturally. So for instance, for my commentary videos, I'm not like scrolling Twitter looking for current events to talk about. I only make topics about things that I come across myself that I find interesting enough to do further research into. That way I enjoy the research process, or maybe somebody sent a video to me that I found interesting. And it's the same thing with patterns. I'm not like scrolling Pinterest or anything like that. I just kind of let the ideas spawn in my brain. And I rely quite a bit on the sporadic bursts of motivation and energy. I don't put myself on a work schedule. I don't give myself quotas. So if I get an idea at 4 in the morning, I'll work at 4 in the morning. That's the beauty of freelancing and being self-employed. I have a variety of things that I do on rotation and that keeps them fresh. So for instance, my commentary videos are pretty emotionally taxing, so maybe after a commentary video I'll work on a pattern for a week, and then that'll be like a lot of numbers, a lot of trial and error, a lot of working on my hands, and then third week maybe I'll pick up some extra pet sitting gigs for income. I think it's very important to have a range of creative outlets, including ones that don't have any sort of financial incentive. And of course, the typical self-care measures, you know, get plenty of sleep, journal, exercise, see your friends and family, leave the house, touch grass, etc. And what inspired me to start making and selling patterns, like I said before, I was seeing a lot of other people's patterns that I felt like I could improve upon in ways that I would like. And I started getting into it just for fun while I was still studying, trying to get my university degree. Back then it was an unmonetized creative outlet, and then it became monetized because people liked my patterns. What helps you when you're in a creativity slump? I'm sorry if this is such a sleazy answer, but I kind of just stop being creative for as long as I need. I'll read books, I'll go out, and if I feel a creative itch, but I don't really know what to do with it, I'll do simple things. For instance, DIY kits, diamond painting, cross stitch, coloring books. Those are all really great just to keep my hands busy without really pulling things out of my brain. If I'm really feeling uninspired, I'll go to markets and see what other creative vendors are selling and making and have a chat with other creative people, and I find that that helps me get the ball rolling again. What's your all-time favorite movie? So for somebody with a film degree, I have a disappointingly basic taste in films. So I think the best film of all time is Parasite. I think Bong Joon-ho is amazing. The visual storytelling was incredible. The cinematography was stunning. I think it's such a picture-perfect critique of class discrepancy. The cast was amazing. It's a movie that you watch once and then it just sticks with you forever. And then there's some good classics that I just watch over and over again. Kung Fu Panda, I think, was so wonderful, and I used to watch that movie every single day throughout my childhood. My dad was sick of me. Coraline, if I want a good slapstick, I'll watch Spy. My most watched are my guilty pleasures, so the really trashy, low-key problematic films that have terrible acting, terrible storytelling, but the cinematography is great, the visuals are great, and the soundtrack is beautiful. So the Twilight Saga, and then the Avatar films with the blue people. Your haircut, did you get it done somewhere? It's so cute. Thank you. So this was in response to this picture where my hair looked like this. It's actually just really overgrown. I had it cut in December 2025. It was a mullet with the sides shaved off, and I got that done at a queer barber in Antwerp. For nearly my whole life, my mom cut my hair, and then she moved overseas, and now I go to either a queer barber or an Asian barber. Any other barber doesn't do it right. I get a lot of compliments on my hair, which I really appreciate, but usually it's just me chopping off bits and pieces or it being really overgrown, and I just keep pushing it out of my eyes until it turns into some sort of style that looks intentional. I really like a good mullet. I like a good shag. I should not say that on the internet. I just like a good layered androgynous cut. Favorite music artist? I don't have one dominant favorite, but I'll list a few. So I like New Dad, Muse, Depeche Mode, Radiohead, Hers, and Massive Attack. And the Very Crafty Caterpillar also says, I love your vids, you seem like an amazing person, and your rescue pigeons are the cutest. Thank you. Snagaboom asks, what is something you like to collect? I don't really collect things now, because I feel like I own too many things. A few things I collected most recently are fridge magnets. I like the little miniatures that are shaped like food, so I have a couple of those. I used to collect a lot of Littlest Pet Shop dolls. I got rid of most of them because I had to downsize, but I still have some of my favorites. I just keep it in this mooncake box. I used to buy them new, and now my philosophy is if I see it at like a secondhand market and I think it's cute, I'll buy it, but I won't go out of my way to look for them anymore like I did in middle school. This one was my very first one, and I had a fight with my sister over who was going to keep it because we had a dog and a cat, and the dog was bigger, so she wanted that, but the cat had a little food bowl. I don't know where the dog's gone. And when I stopped collecting them, I just had so many and I didn't know what to do, so I went on Vinted and I bought a bunch of doll houses for them. So I have this one. It's actually a gym, and I have, oh, there's some babies in here. A little punching bag, little swings. So that was the thing that I probably collected the most. I collected a lot of stuff. I had those horse dolls. I also had MLP dolls. I had the Tinkerbell books. I had Junie B. Jones, Geronimo Stilton. But the LPS dolls were really the ones that stuck with me, and I can't let go of them. What is my fave flavor of ice cream? So Alpro Soya has this chocolate hazelnut flavor that I really, really love, and it was actually my favorite before I went vegan, which is fantastic. If I were to take a non-vegan ice cream and turn it vegan so that I could eat it again, it would be the Ben & Jerry's strawberry cheesecake. How many languages are you conversational in? I like this question because if it just asks how many languages I speak, the honest answer would be 1, but since you asked how many languages I'm conversational in, I can actually provide an answer. Okay, I always get nervous speaking different languages. Okay, so 第一个是中文普通话，我是中国人，我妈妈爸爸是东北人，然后我在上海出生的。4岁的时候我们出国了，所以我的中文一点都不好，一辈子就说英语。我不会读写，其实我会10几个字母，然后我会写我自己的名字。Ik spreek ook iets tussen Vlaams of Nederlands. Sommige mensen beschouwen het als Vlaams, sommige mensen beschouwen het als Nederlands. I guess I code switch sometimes, so I don't know if this counts as 2 languages. Probably not. Ik heb een paar jaar in België gewoond en ik heb daar Nederlands gestudeerd in middelbare school. Het zou beter kunnen zijn, want ik woon letterlijk in Holland, maar het is bijna onmogelijk om hier te oefenen. Want in Amsterdam, elke Nederlander spreekt perfect Engels. Dus als ik met een Nederlander praat, op het eerste moment dat ik een fout maak, ze gaan meteen overschakelen naar Engels. Ja, ik voel me altijd zenuwachtig als ik Nederlands wil praten, want it just feels like... Ich spreche auch ein sehr, sehr, sehr klein bisschen Deutsch, aber definitely not conversational, weil mein Freund ist Deutsch, aber seine ganze Familie spricht sehr gute Englisch. Ich weiß nur witzige Dinge. Like, I know how to say, hast du Spiele auf deinem Handy? And when I just want to, like, be annoying to Till, I'll say, like, ich muss schlafen, kannst du bitte für mich einen Kaffee machen? Mein Gott, Leute! Meine Mama hat mir einfach erlaubt, dass ich Cola trinken darf. Wie cool ist das bitte? Jetzt zocke ich Fortnite und trinke Cola. Yippie! Ew, okay. That's enough. So to answer your question, I'm conversational in 3. English, Dutch or Flemish, whatever you want to call it, and Mandarin Chinese. Assumption, you have been to a protest march at least once in your life. I have. I've been to several and I hope to go to more. You wouldn't seek out adopting a pet, but if one fell into your lap needing care, you'd take the best care of it for the rest of its life. I would love to have a pet sometime in the future. The reason why I don't have one now is firstly, the landlord doesn't allow it. I don't think this apartment is a good space for a pet. If I were to get a pet, I would get a cat, which is not ideal when I also have pigeons in my house. But definitely if one fell into my lap needing care, that would become the center of my world. Even with like every pigeon I take in, for the time that they are with me, they just become the center of my universe and everything else is secondary. Your left politics don't fully expand to the welfare of animals. This is an interesting question because you are either somebody who watches my channel a lot and you're asking me this to give me a gateway into like going on a whole vent about this because you feel that I have that urge, or you're a new viewer, which is okay. This is actually something that's always in the corner of my mind, is how can I expand my morals and values to animals? And I completely understand this assumption because I think the amount of leftists who do make an active effort to extend their politics to animals is disappointingly low, and I don't think owning a pet counts. I am a vegan. A lot of people hear the word veganism and they think of this elitist, like white girl, gentrified diet. Veganism is a philosophy. It's a philosophy that says that humans are not better than animals. I don't think there is a moral difference between humans and animals, and I don't think animals should be exploited for human benefit. Any animal products that I do have, such as the wool in my yarn stash, it's usually secondhand, or it was given to me as a gift by somebody who at the time didn't know that I avoid animal products. Non-human animals are a marginalized demographic. The fact that I, as a human, am marginalized in various ways, but I hold so much privilege and so much power over non-human animals really attests to the position that they're in our human society. I don't support animal agriculture because I am feminist, because that's an industry that runs on the exploitation of marginalized bodies, namely female bodies. And there's this huge misconception that cows need to be milked because they constantly lactate, when in reality, they have to give birth in order to produce milk. So they're just forced to give birth over and over. And then they're separated from their babies. Lots of buzzwords like free range and grass-fed, people conflate that with ethical, when in reality, like, it doesn't really guarantee the well-being of the animal at all. Most people are so unaware of where their food comes from, how it's harvested. So many people refuse to do the research about how veganism is possible, because I think that knowledge kind of then gives them the personal responsibility to make the sacrifice. There's this new talking point that like veganism is racist because there's like indigenous communities that live off the land and they eat animals. And this talking point is in itself racist because it's tokenizing this noble savage stereotype. And the best way to protect indigenous communities is to adopt a plant-based diet, is to lower your carbon footprint, because factory farming is like one of the leading causes of the loss of indigenous land. The Great American Buffalo Slaughter was an act of ethnic cleansing. You're messing up the native ecosystem that indigenous people are part of. People think it's barbaric that in certain cultures they eat dogs and cats, and I think it's a huge double standard, and it's also a racist double standard because I think it's just as barbaric to eat cows and pigs and chickens, and when the French are eating deer and snail, it's seen as like high cuisine. People get so outraged when you discuss the relationship between harming animals and harming humans. It's only outrageous if you see animals as inferior to humans. I think animal welfare, climate justice, these are human rights issues. Slaughterhouse workers have some of the highest rates of PTSD and other mental health issues, and they have some of the poorest, most dangerous working conditions. There's a link between slaughterhouse work and antisocial behavior, including sexual violence. And I think this is a good place to do a tangent on how I got into pigeon rescue. So I love all animals, and I vow to care for all animals I come across who need help. It's just that every time I do come across an animal that needs help, it's always a pigeon. And so I just kept saving pigeons, and then eventually that became my specialization. Living in big cities all my life, they're just always around me, and it just made no sense to me that any animal's natural habitat would be a city. So I looked into it, and obviously I learned about the whole history of like using pigeons for communication. And the more you observe them, the more you realize that they're not okay. They're limping, they have missing toes, they have strings on their feet. So I went online and I was just like, I just searched up pigeon rescue, and then I came across a local Facebook group. It was a Facebook group led by this amazing woman, Billy Savage, and she's devoted her whole life to rehabilitating animals. I reached out to her, and eventually I met her at a workshop, and she taught me a lot of what I know. And then over time I started meeting more and more people, learning more and more things, and now I'm very lucky to have a small network of volunteers, and we help each other. And for instance, if I go on vacation and I have 2 rescues, I can give it to somebody who can watch them on my behalf, and vice versa. And I'm very lucky that I have this YouTube community because I can raise awareness and I can raise funds. A lot of people are afraid of pigeons because of all that misinformation out there that they're carrying diseases and whatnot. And I understand that they can be like really overwhelming at times when they like all fly away and they're like hovering over your head. It can be scary, but I never had that because I was desensitized very early. When I was small and I was living in Shanghai, my parents would take me to this park and there would be somebody selling grain that you could feed to the local pigeon flock, and my parents would always buy me one, and then I would feed them, and they'd be crawling over my hands, my arms, they'd sit on my head. And I loved it. And it was a flock of the larger white pigeons, so they were really strong, and sometimes they would scratch me and I would bleed, and I think over time that's why my parents stopped taking me. And after a certain point, I also stopped asking for the grain to feed them because I was just under the impression that it was a little kid thing to do, and that liking pigeons and feeding pigeons was something that little kids did. So I stopped because I wanted to feel like a grown-up at my big age of 4 years old. Pigeons are a great analogy of understanding lower class or homeless people, because that's essentially what they are. It's a great way of understanding how unfortunate living situations can lead to disability, and then it's sort of a never-ending cycle because once you're disabled, it's harder to raise your income because there's so many jobs that you can't work, and then it's just an incredibly stigmatizing position to be in. We erect hostile infrastructure against pigeons, such as spikes and nets, just how we make hostile infrastructure for humans, such as armchairs on benches. And it doesn't eradicate homelessness. It doesn't lower the population of pigeons. It just displaces them and worsens their suffering. I've received hate comments under my pigeon rescue videos of people saying it's just a pigeon, they're just rodents, who cares? And then you go to their profile and then they have reposts about how disliking cats is misogynistic. What does disliking pigeons say about you then? The first time I really learned about pigeons was in 5th grade, where I picked up this book and it was called Ringer. And it's about this young boy who lives in this society where pigeons are seen as game and they're shot for sport. And a coming of age ritual for young boys is they become ringers. So they pick up the pigeons that have been shot but they're still alive and they wring their necks to kill them. And this boy, he accidentally befriends a pigeon and he tries to get rid of it, but he keeps coming back. Eventually they form this bond, but he has to hide their friendship because he could get in trouble and he could get bullied. And it was a really profound story that really stuck with me. And I think since reading that book, I started viewing pigeons with a different gaze. So back to the assumption about extending my welfare to animals, and I'm sorry, this is a really long tangent. Animal studies was part of my bachelor's degree, and for both my bachelor's and master's theses, I explored human and non-human relationships in visual media and how they revealed the sort of arbitrariness of human constructs, such as masculinity and disability. I looked at the intersection between speciesism and racism, and how racist media likes to portray people of color as animals, for instance, or as having non-human qualities as a way to get away with like modern day minstrelsy, basically. So I looked at Avatar with the blue people through this sort of decolonial and animal studies lens, and how the film has like multiple patriarchal gazes overlapping. I looked at The Power of the Dog and how it explores masculinity through horses and rabbits and dogs, and how that deconstructs the Western character film tropes like the cowboy. I looked at Good Hunting with Orientalism and how animals in Chinese mythology, for instance, differ from animals in the Western gaze. And I loved this short film because it was a portrayal of non-human animals, not as a punishment, not as a disability, but as something that's no different than the human animal, and as an extension of the humanness, I guess. It takes a lot of unlearning to view non-human animals as not pets for ownership or resources for usage, but as their own entities. Even if I'm vegan, even if I rescue animals, I'm not automatically entitled to their trust or affection. And I think my relationship with pigeons has really contributed to that, because I have these pigeons that visit my balcony and they're not my pets, they're not my friends, but I have this relationship to them that I'm basically the frog at the bottom of the well. Even though I feed them, even though I see them every day, they exist outside of me. And there's nothing I can do about that. I'm constantly thinking about how, because I'm a human, everything I do is through an anthropocentric lens. And I think about how connotations attached to animals in our popular culture very rarely reflect these animals' real life qualities. Like so many mistakes that I made early into this pigeon rescue, and I still make mistakes, is because I don't understand them and I make assumptions based on a very human understanding of what a pigeon is. I had to learn the hard way that I cannot project my own understanding of illness to an animal that is nothing like me. Just for example, a sleepy pigeon is not a happy pigeon. That is a very, very ill and dying pigeon. So many pigeons have died because someone underestimated the severity of their illness or didn't understand their anatomy and put food or water down the wrong tube. I think now that we have the knowledge and affordances to eat a healthy diet and have a perfectly healthy lifestyle without consuming animal products, we should see to what extent we're able to do that. I've been talking for so long, oh my god. So to answer your question, I have a lot of work to do in terms of extending my politics to non-human animals, but it is something that I'm actively making an effort to do every single day, and I think everybody else should also be doing. And that leads me to the next question. What is your biggest goal right now? I don't have one overarching goal, but I have goals for each aspect of my life. So talking about the animal stuff, I want to become more specialized. I want to be more knowledgeable. So right now with pigeons, I can do like field rescuing, I can catch them, I can de-string, I can deal with wounds, I can administer oral medicine, I can do physiotherapy. I would like to get better at diagnosing them, so I would like to get a microscope and I would like to do stool and crop samples by myself. I would like to learn how to administer shots, and right now I'm in a small apartment. I can't actually house that many pigeons at a time, but we have this little back balcony. Right now we just use it for storage and gardening and cleaning, but Till and I want to repurpose it into a mini loft. That way we could probably keep like upwards of a dozen pigeons at a time and they can fly around a little bit and socialize with each other. I also do pole dancing for fitness, and I would like to get my aerial invert, I would like to get my straight leg invert, and I would like to get my shoulder mount. And I'm almost there. I'm at like 40% for these, so hopefully soon. Those are the benchmarks that would basically declare that I'm ready to move on to the next difficulty level. What other goals do I have? This is not good. I really should have more tangible goals, but honestly, like in general, I really just want to keep at it. As for a dream that I have for this channel, when I was a kid and I wanted to be a YouTuber, my dream was to get a YouTube play button, which would require 100,000 subscribers. And right now I'm pretty indifferent to my subscriber count, and actually having more subscribers is honestly to the detriment of my channel, because then the hype points would be worth less. It would be really cool to reach 100k and get the play button just for my younger self. So I think the biggest struggle with my channel right now is my niche is all over the place. I have tutorials, I have vlogs, I have commentary. So right now people will see one type of video that I do, most likely my commentary, and then they'll subscribe expecting more commentary. And then YouTube will start showing them my other videos. Maybe they'll see a tutorial and the vlog, and then it's not what they signed up for, and then they get confused and then they unsubscribe, and it's actually harming my channel. So I need to figure something out, and I don't want to because I like the variety for myself. I don't want to do a second channel. I might have to eventually give in and do that, but maybe just make my content more coherent. Like maybe my vlogs need more of a narrative. Like I did voiceover for one and people seem to like that, or maybe make my commentary more spontaneous and personal. I'm not sure. But even with my channel, like I think I have a really good thing going. So honestly, I just want to keep at it and see where it takes me. What are your thoughts on marriage, like the concept of it / societal pressure? So when I was really small, I loved the idea of marriage. I really wanted to get married. I thought that when I was 25, I would be married with like 3 kids. But when I really fully understood marriage, I became pretty indifferent to it because I was like, why are we declaring our commitment several years into a relationship with a legal binding? Because for me, I'm already making all those commitments when I enter a relationship, when I make the relationship itself official. That's why it's always been very important for me to know a person as a friend before entering a relationship with them. So I'm fine married, I'm fine unmarried. There's a lot of people that want me to get married, and that annoys me because like, what does that have to do with you? I really hate these like chronically online litmus tests. For instance, if he doesn't propose to you in after X amount of years, then he never will and you should leave him. And I just think that's stupid. Till and I do intend on marrying because it's very important for him. The prospect of a wedding really stresses me out, but I already know I'm gonna deviate from a lot of the traditional stuff. Like I don't think I'm gonna do a bouquet toss or the weird garter thing or wear a white dress, for instance. If you ever got the opportunity to go to space, would you take it? If you asked me this when I was like 12 years old, I would definitely say yes. And now I think it's not worth the carbon emissions, so no. What's your favorite kind of base to build in Minecraft? So I always build the same thing in every single world that I start. I find a jungle biome and I build a massive tree. And I live inside that tree. Not a tree house, but like inside the actual trunks and branches of the tree. And my sister's sick of me because it's all that I build. If you were in a fantasy world, what do you think your class would be? Bard, droid, rogue, wizard, fighter, etc. I think I would be a rogue because I think I'm pretty smart and I'm pretty stealthy. I would steal a bunch of shit and then I would DIY a bunch of trinkets and gadgets with the shit that I stole. You're either secretly or openly a furry. Maybe. I don't know. What does being a furry entail? Does it mean like feeling really akin to a certain animal? Or does that make you Therian? Does it mean dressing up as an animal from time to time? Does it mean having an alter ego that's a non-human animal? If I had a fursuit, it would be a realistic one. Like I would actually want to resemble the animal as accurately as possible. And I think I would be a cat furry. Maybe I am a furry because I seem to have a really clear-cut idea of what my fursona is. I would love to join a furry convention and honestly just see some furries in the flesh and hang out with them. If you guys have an idea for what my fursona is, please do tell me. I do really love when people say that I remind them of a certain animal and when they draw me as a certain animal. I wouldn't secretly be a furry, I would openly be a furry, for sure. I would probably do videos in a fursuit if I had one. Yeah, you know what? I'm a furry. I think I'm a furry. Assumptions. You don't want kids. Definitely not for the time being, no. You like the Titanic movie. I thought it was okay. But I really don't like the cheating plotline because I think it's such a cliche in romance films that the female protagonist is like in this unfulfilling relationship and then she cheats on her partner with like the charming misfit guy. Like it happens in the Titanic, it's also in like Me Before You, The Notebook. I think it's just so overdone and off-putting and unnecessary, so the Titanic movie was okay. I probably would like it if it weren't for that. You were in sports as a kid. So my parents signed me up for soccer without telling me because they were worried that I was under eating and they hoped that me running around would raise my appetite. But I really hated it. I was really unsporty as a kid. I was actually a theater kid. I was always the scrawniest, the shortest, the slowest runner. I would always get picked last, and then the team that I'm assigned to would always start like groaning whenever I got assigned to them. It's not that I dislike sports, I just hated how competitive it is because I never had that athletic edge, so I was always picked on. I liked badminton, but we only did that for like 2 weeks a year. Hated soccer. hated basketball, hated volleyball. I still really dislike cardio, but a couple years ago I discovered pole fitness, and that genuinely like changed the way I view sports and fitness, and now I actually really like it. And I think a lot of creative people go into pole because obviously it's a creative sport and it's a great outlet with a good community that's non-judgmental, and they're not gonna fucking make fun of you if you like can't do a layup. You've had a hard friendship breakup. I have actually. It was a couple years ago now, so not too recent. There's no hard feelings, and I hope they're doing okay. So about my star sign. I would have said you're a Scorpio, but in your last video you said you weren't a water sign, and you're definitely not a Pisces, so I'm going with Sagittarius. And then somebody else said I was guessing either Pisces or Scorpio. Already know the first one was wrong, but I'm curious about the latter. And then the pigeon thing, I answered that earlier. So somebody said I'm definitely not a Pisces, and then other people said I would have guessed Pisces, so I'm really curious as to why. I get Scorpio a lot, which I think checks out, but no, I am actually a Sagittarius, so you got that right. I'm a fire sign, and I have, I think, 5 or 6 Sagittarius placements. But I'm nothing like a Sagittarius. Like, I think the stereotypes are like adventurous, outgoing, optimistic, and I am none of those things. You weren't chronically online until after the pandemic, no shade. I think I was chronically online before the pandemic in a different way. I really liked video games, so I was watching a lot of esports. I was watching like Twitch streamers and vloggers. That was the sort of corner of the internet I was in. And then during COVID, I definitely got into more podcasts and celebrity drama, and I got into commentary, and I also started posting more stuff myself, so my screen time didn't go up, but I think my chronically onlineness definitely did in that respect. So I got a couple questions asking about my pronouns. She, they. An assumption is that you're queer. I've thought about this for a long time. I don't think I'm queer. I think I'm just very, very queer cultured. Nearly all of my friends are queer. I was raised very gender neutral. My mom actually calls me her son instead of her daughter, which I find pretty affirming. My approach to like gender and sexuality was always, I like what I like, I am what I am. Sometimes I find a masked woman attractive, sometimes I find a drag queen attractive, but does that make me, see, I don't know. It is what it is, but I don't think so. To what extent do you have to deviate from heteronormativity in order to be considered queer? Like, and does it matter? I don't know. My friend Aiden asks me, can trust be rebuilt, or is it human nature to forever hold on to our grievances? I think it is human nature to hold on to grievances, but I also think that humans are such social and community-based creatures that we are very capable of rebuilding trust. That being said, I think it's a conscious, active, and personal choice that you have to make every single day. It takes time, it takes effort. To me, what's more important is assessing whether rebuilding trust with that person is even worth it, or if it's better to find closure in other ways and simply end things with that person. And obviously it's not that simple, especially when that person could be a family member or somebody who is stuck in your life. And for me personally, I like to hold grudges like a crow. For me, it also depends greatly on the extent of that grievance. For instance, like if you forgot to feed my cat, I probably won't let you cat sit unless you show me over an extended period of time that that's a one-off thing and it's not going to happen again. But if you cheated on somebody, if you abused somebody, if you did something that will stay with the affected person for the rest of their lives, out of respect for the victim, maybe I won't treat you differently, maybe I won't cut you out of my life, but I will never look at you the same. That was a very bad yes but also no question, but I think that's just the nature of it, and I hope that's still insightful. My friend Sophia says, you're a baddie. Thank you, I think you're a baddie. And Till asks, do you still like me? Yes, I still like you. Somebody said, I just want to say I love you. You're kind and emphatic. I would love to meet you someday and be friends. Thank you, I really appreciate that. I really love being a crocheter and a YouTuber because usually when I do tester calls, the people who apply are my subscribers, and that way I get to know my community and make some friends. So super grateful for this platform and to be able to do what I do. Those were all the questions and assumptions I received. Thank you guys for sending those in. This was so much fun. I hope y'all learned more about me and what I do, and I really appreciate y'all for being a part of this community. I am going away to Asia next week to see my family, so I probably won't post anything for the next 3-4 weeks. Maybe I'll do a vlog, maybe I'll do some Instagram posts, I don't know, but if you want to stay updated, this is my Instagram. Yeah, thanks for watching, dudes, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!